Come on, Ivar. Come on. Good morning, Nigel. I'm gearing up for a very busy week ahead. I had to move around a few of the horses because we are supposed to be starting to have our well drilled today. They're supposed to be very close to Nigel's pen, so I did move him over to a temporary spot. As long as he can behave, I think he'll be fine where he's at. Before I get going for the day, I am going to walk around and check in on the garden. Ivar, where have you been? Where have you been? Come here. You missed breakfast. Come here. You hungry? Come on. Psst. Where have you been? Come on. Ivar. I've been a little bit distracted for the last month or so. I had been working with a cute little filly that I finally decided to release a video about. I really appreciate everyone's kind words in the comments. I don't like keeping secrets from you guys, but Sweet Pea was a horse that I needed to have all of my mental capacity to deal with. I had quite a few comments asking for a more in-depth video about what exactly was going on with her, and I think I will post something this upcoming week. I'm pretty bummed that I wasn't able to help her, but maybe sharing a part of her story will help other horses in the future. I'm pretty glad that I've had the garden to keep me busy for the last month because it definitely helped with my mental state. Hello? Gotcha. Crazy. Come on. Not good at all. Come on. I was up pretty early this morning. I have a few more things to get done before the drillers arrive. I know the general vicinity of where the well is going to go, but I do have to move around Sparkler's panels. The rig they're bringing is pretty big, so they are going to need a lot of extra space. In addition to the driller coming today, I am going to have a bunch of crusher fines delivered. Once I know exactly where the well is going to be, I can start laying out the permanent pens for the horses. This is something that I've been waiting a really long time to do, and I'm so excited that it is finally here. I really thought I had most of the metal scrap picked up out of the pasture, but I've been harrowing little places here and there, and I can't believe how many horseshoes I've been finding. I've got 3 or 4 different setups in my mind, and it will all depend on where that well is at. I'm going to be running some pipe and electricity to all of the horse pens so their water can stay thawed during the winter. It's going to save me so much time to have water available right where the horses are at. A few of them I'm still hauling water to. Most of them are getting water from our irrigation, so it's basically from the creek. I'm not 100% sure how much crusher fines we are going to be able to haul. I basically have the driver for the dump truck all day long, so we're just going to make as many trips as possible. With some good footing, I'll be able to start laying down the pads for the shelters. I need to pick up a bunch of little tiny sticks and rocks, and I'm hoping that this is going to work. I've got the boys' second little turnout pasture almost completed. I have 2 little sections of fence that I need to get done. I also set up a bunch more T-posts that we need to hammer in so they can have a much bigger area to run around in. The nicest part about this tiny little hidden pasture is there are no prairie dogs whatsoever in it. After a little test run with the paddock blade, I decided to take it across the ranch and use it on the place where I'm going to put the dry lots. Unfortunately, I ended up scooping a bunch of my driveway up. In the past couple of years, I've really tried hard to invest in equipment that makes my life easier. I've tried to use these things several different ways and I just have not found a good application for it. It always ends up being more trouble than it's worth. I'm going to try to use it one more time up on top because there's a little bit more grass there. I think I ultimately just don't have the right type of ground to be using this. When this thing fills up, it is really hard to dump out. I'm pretty careful about my back these days and I am not even going to try and lift this up. Everything seems to be happening all at once and I'm trying to get prepared. The drillers were supposed to be here already, but it looks like they're going to be a day behind. I'm still not sure about where I'm going to lay out all the pens, so it'll give me another day to think about that. I heard Nigel making a ruckus, so I went over to see what he was doing. I've been getting a lot of questions about if Prim's pregnancy is going to help her in the future with her heat cycles. I barely noticed her full heat, which happens pretty soon after the baby is born. I was a little bit worried when I decided to put Nigel so close to Prim because it was getting closer to the time she was going to come back into heat again. I noticed last night when I moved Nigel that he was very interested in what she was doing. He's been calling to her all morning and she is definitely in heat, but she is so much different than she was before she had Bruce. I was really nervous about my decision to breed her because I don't like making more horses when there's so many in need. I thought really hard about the perfect match for Prim and I'm so glad that Bruce came out the way he did. I was pretty stoked to see that even when Nigel was whipping up his very best move, Prim was completely unbothered. Scarlett was pretty interested in what Nigel was doing, but she is not in heat right now. I've definitely noticed a significant change in Nigel the longer he hangs out next to Bruce. He is a lot more reserved and I'm not sure if it's because he is convinced that Bruce is his baby or if he is just on his very best behavior because he's around mayors. But this is pretty uncharacteristic of Nigel. I'm always a little bit worried when he's not his normal sassy self. He was a little bit depressed for quite a while after Frisco's passing. And I think he might be finally adjusting to a life without him. If he continues to behave around these mayors, then I may build his permanent pen in a completely different spot. Bruce seemed perfectly content with the fact that his pen was a little bit smaller. He has not really been doing a lot of running around lately and I've noticed he's been taking some pretty serious naps. He does, however, pick out the most uncomfortable positions to be laying in. I can't really tell because I see him every day, but I think he is going through a pretty serious growth spurt. When the drillers arrive, they plop down the perfect place for the well. It is basically right in the middle of Scarlett's gentling pen. When they started drilling, I had a moment of clarity and figured out where all of the pens were going to go. I had it in my mind that I didn't want to tear up any of the grass because there really isn't too much out there. I can always put new grass down, so it completely changed my mindset about where the horses were going to go. I have a skid steer for the next 2 days, the crusher fines are dropped off, and the well is on its way. I spent 2 very long days in the skid steer laying out all of my future plans. Scooting around in a skid steer is one of my most favorite activities, and it was extra fun because I was waiting so long to get started on this project. While I was zipping around on the skid steer, I uncovered some kind of mystery pipe that I'm a little bit worried about. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm going to try my best not to run over it again until I figure it out.
Ivar. Ponies.
I want to have all of the horses' dry lots as close to the arena as possible. I ultimately decided to cut down this whole entire fence and put a little access road up to the arena. It'll be perfect for coming up here with the trailer and dropping off unhandled horses. I am definitely going to get some more Mustangs in the future, and I'm always up for a new unhandled auction pony. This should make it so much easier.
You grumpy?
I do have a tendency to underestimate the time that everything is going to take. After 2 days, I started to get the feeling that I was maybe not going to have enough time to finish all of the chores I had planned for the skid steer. I haven't found a place to get good arena sand yet, but I am going to use the skid steer to cover up all of the prairie dog holes here and level out the base. Coming out of the arena, I want to put a small dry lot to the left, and then I'm going to try and keep a small little pasture with grass. With it being so close to where the irrigation comes in, it should be the easiest spot to keep growing. I'm going to make a little loop to swing around with the trailer, and then on the left here is where all of the pens are going to be. I want to make sure there's good drainage and the horses are not standing in mud, so I had to level out some of the areas where the shelters were going to go. I moved around quite a bit of dirt to make everything a bit more level. This area around the old homestead building does have a lot of glass and metal. I would love it to be able to be grass, but I think I'm probably going to have to cover it up with crusher fines just to keep the horses safe. I'm still thinking about possibly putting fill dirt and grass instead. With it being so hot and dry this year, I'm not sure that that is going to be something that's possible though.
Better get out of here, little dude. You're gonna be getting squashed. Come on.
I opted to keep the skid steer for a whole week because I'll definitely be able to use it. I was getting a little bit stressed out with the timeline, and now I can go at a more leisurely pace.
Something. What are you three up to? Zig?
It was pretty fun to see these three boys hanging out together.
Ew.
I have a few different scenarios in my mind for when we wean Bruce. He's kind of a funny foal because he is very brave and outgoing and doesn't seem to mind the big horses.
I think you're gonna like it.
After seeing him interact with Nigel and Ziggy the last couple of days, it is not completely off the table that these three boys wouldn't be able to form their own little herd. Here is a look at the beginnings of the access road. Even though it's dry now, I know we're going to get some moisture in the future, so I wanted to make sure I put down a pretty good base. I peeled the grass off the top and now am laying down a few inches of the crusher fines. I've noticed in a few places that I drive the Ranger very regularly, if the ground gets wet, I just end up sinking into the dirt. In Montana, I ended up having to refresh the crusher fines in the pens once every 2 to 3 years. I was going to put down a grid system underneath, but I think I prefer to just add more footing as needed.
You hungry? Come on, let's go.
When Ivar wasn't watching me, Tiny was doing a pretty good job at supervising.
Kidding me? Ivar! Come here!
I don't know what's gotten into Ivar, but I do catch him out in the pasture every morning. I was not very happy to see that he was actually chasing a little red fox.
Ivar!
He listens a little bit better than Huckleberry,
He's
so
not a
I was
fox.
able to get him to come in.
Ivar!
The fox was quite a bit bigger than him. It's around here a lot, trying to catch prairie dogs. I have a feeling that Tiny and Ivar has exhausted the supply of prairie dogs around the house and are now having to move out a little bit farther into the fox's territory. Both Tiny and Ivar get fed multiple times a day, so I think they're just maybe a little bit bored.
Ivar!
Tiny doesn't stray far from where the horses are, but Ivar seems to like going out on little adventures. I would really prefer if he would stop wandering.
You gotta keep an eye on your cat.
Anytime Huckleberry's outside, he is not far behind.
You okay?
It's been a little bit too hot in the middle of the day for Huckleberry to stay outside, and that could be why Ivar's been wandering.
Pussy!
With all of the time I've been spending on the skid steer this week, I haven't spent a lot of time training Bruce. He needs to be a little bit better with me touching his head before I put the halter on him, and this week he has definitely made some pretty big improvements. The goal is to just let me put my hand on his little head without wiggling.
That's a nice boy.
He's a pretty sensitive horse, so it was a bit hard for him. Tiny also still has trouble with me scratching her head sometimes. She's a little bit extra grouchy about all of the extra activity around her ranch. Hopefully she won't get too annoyed over the next couple of days, because we've still got quite a bit of work to do.
Tiny.
The first 2 days I had the skid steer, I basically ran it all day long because I was trying to maximize my time. It has been getting extremely hot for a few hours in the middle of the day. For the remainder of the time I have this machine, I'm probably just going to run it in the very early morning, and then when it cools down in the evening.
You better run.
Since they changed the area that they are drilling, I could certainly move Nigel back to his normal pen, but he does seem rather content to hang out next to Prim and Bruce all day.
Little girl.
Even if Prim is totally ignoring all of his advances.
Girl, Primmy. Sweet girl. Sweet boy, Brucey. Good boy, Brucey.
I was a little bit worried about all of the increased activity around here, but all of the horses seem to be perfectly content. After spending 2 straight days on the skid steer, my garden is suffering a little bit. It was pretty exciting to see how much the pumpkin vines have grown. With all of the excess heat, my tomatoes have started to look a little bit on the wilted side. I need to get up some shade cloth so when it gets really hot in a couple of days, they're a bit more protected. I'm growing so many different things, it's giving me a much better idea of how I can set up the garden for next year and protect some of the more sensitive plants. The only part of the garden I watered the last 2 days were these little seedlings that are popping up. Everything else has just been using all of the extra moisture stored in the wood underneath the beds. Despite the bright sun, everything seems to be growing really well without extra watering. I'm really interested to see how long I can let these beds go without adding more water. So far, I think the hugelkultur beds were definitely the right move for our environment. I was a little bit worried about my one remaining loofah plant, but it seems to have grown over the last couple of days quite a bit. My cucumbers are sprouting up and my little snake bean is still holding on. Our new well is now only 40 feet deep. They're anticipating having to drill to around 150 to 200 feet. I've got a few more days with the skid steer, so I am going to try and get as much done out here as possible. My goal is to get all of the base laid down, so when the skid steer returns, I can get started on putting up the permanent shelters. That should keep me busy for a couple of weeks before I need the use of the skid steer again. Thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video.